Andrew Weissmann, I was going to ask you a very lofty question about enforcement, but I'm going to use the verbiage instead that my mother just texted me, which is, bottom line, when does she get the cash?
That has to await the appeal, and that's because that's part of our process, where you're entitled to appeal and be heard, and it doesn't matter whether you're Donald Trump or anyone else. That is part of the rule of law that we're seeing being upheld here. Just to focus, I will take sort of a step back, but
Please.
not on that quite issue, but on but to talk about this is really a bad sign for Donald Trump, because when you think about what he really has to do, and his whole goal is to denigrate the rule of law, to denigrate the judicial system, the court system, because that is where he is facing accountability. He obviously has done that with respect to prosecutors, to Joe Biden, to journalists. He's done all that, but he has to worry about what is happening in these cases. Well, he made an explicit appeal today to jury nullification. What is jury nullification? That is asking the jury not to follow the law. That is why Alina Habba was sort of slapped down by the judge, saying, do not make those arguments. That is why Donald Trump, as Harry said, tried to inject his own views, whether it was on the stand or in these sort of loud statements from within the courtroom when he was not on the stand, was just tell the jury, just disregard what the judge is doing, disregard the law. Well, that did not happen. It did not happen here. It did not happen in the prior case. He is found to be somebody who has not only defamed, but sexually assaulted. And if you listen to Judge Kaplan today, it was in extremely and appropriately graphic terms in terms of what the jury found that he had done to E. Jean Carroll against her will, without consent. Another jury has found beyond a reasonable doubt that the Trump Organization is criminally liable for a multi-year tax scheme. And the Judge and Gordon decision that we're waiting for is going to be a damage amount. But remember, he has already found, again, in a court of law, after Donald Trump had his day in court, has already found that he engaged in fraud, that he personally has, as has his organization. So you're seeing in so many ways the courts really standing up. And this is something Liz Cheney pointed out in her book and when she was speaking about it, that if you look at the different institutions and you think about what institution is actually held by and large, it is really the judicial system. And I think what we saw today with the judge and the jurors here, all non-unanimous jurors, is you're seeing people really embodying what is the best in America, which is that the rule of law has to triumph, and that people were going to reject this idea of we're going to, have a cult where we just don't hold you to the same standard any of the rest of us are held to.